The Supernova Bar Showdown. In the heart of the asteroid belt lay Zark Station, a notorious haven for the galaxy's most dangerous individuals. At its core was the Supernova Bar, a dimly lit establishment where smugglers, mercenaries, and pirates converged to drink, gamble, and brawl. The air was thick with smoke and the clamor of various alien languages. Rise, a grizzled ex-soldier and the leader of a small crew of humans, stood at the bar, his ancient revolver holstered at his side. His crew, Tanner, a brawny mechanic, Jax, a wiry combat specialist, and Rook, a cybernetically enhanced sharpshooter, watched his back. They had come to Zark Station seeking work, unaware of the trouble that awaited them. As Reyes took a sip of his drink, a towering Arcturian named Zephyr approached, flanked by his gang of hulking enforcers. Zephyr, a known thug, sneered at Reyes, his sharp claws tapping the bar's surface menacingly. "Surrender your credits and gear, human, before I peel the skin from your bones," Zephyr growled, his voice a deep rumble. Reyes met Zephyr's gaze without flinching. "We're just here for a drink, friend. No need for trouble." But Zephyr was not interested in diplomacy. He wanted to make an example of the humans who dared to step into his territory. With a signal from Zephyr, the Arcturians surrounded Reyes and his crew, cutting off any chance of escape. 10 paces, turn and fire," Zephyr declared, his claws flexing. "First hit wins." The bar fell silent as the patrons formed a tight circle around them, eager for the spectacle. Bets were placed rapidly, most favoring Zephyr. The Arcturian drew his plasma pistol, its sleek design humming with deadly energy. Reyes, unfazed, drew his revolver, the well-worn grip fitting perfectly in his hand. They turned their backs to each other and began pacing. At the 10th step, they whirled around. Zephyr's plasma pistol fired first, a burst of searing energy hurtling towards Reyes. But Reyes was already in motion, dropping into a combat roll. The plasma bolts sizzled overhead as Reyes came up firing. His revolver roared, the heavy bullet tearing through Zephyr's shoulder, sending the Arcturian sprawling. A stunned silence followed, then the room erupted into chaos. Reyes approached Zephyr, pressing the barrel of his revolver against the fallen thug's chest. "We're square," he said flatly. "Anyone touches me and mine, they answer to me." With that, Reyes and his crew moved towards the exit, the crowd parting to let them pass. Whispers followed them, speculating about the human who had bested one of the station's most feared enforcers with a primitive weapon. The offer from Grix. Word of Reyes's victory spread quickly. Among those interested was Grix, a sly Zorgan arms dealer known for his connections and his insatiable curiosity about rare weapons. He sent a message to Reyes, requesting a meeting at Booth 7 in the Supernova Bar. Reyes read the message, his brow furrowing. Tanner glanced over his shoulder. "Grix, ha. What does that snake want?" "Only one way to find out," Reyes replied, finishing his drink and standing. "Watch the ship. I'll be back soon." The bar was quieter when Reyes arrived at Booth 7. Grix, his mottled green skin glistening, greeted him with a sharp-toothed grin. "Captain Reyes, thank you for coming. You wanted to talk, so talk," Reyes said, his tone clipped. Grix leaned forward. "That was quite a show you put on. Zephyr is not an easy mark. That little hand cannon of yours must pack a punch." Reyes's hand drifted towards his holster. "It gets the job done." "What's it to you?" "I'm a collector of rare and valuable weapons," Grix said, spreading his hands. "And a piece like that? Well, I'd be very interested in acquiring it. Name your price." "It's not for sale," Reyes replied. "This gun's been in my family for generations. I'm not parting with it." Grix's eyes narrowed. "Everything has a price, Captain. But perhaps we can make a different arrangement. I can offer you advanced tech weapons that would make your little toy look like a child's pop gun. All I ask is a steady supply of human arms." Reyes's eyes narrowed. "We look like arms dealers to you. We're just trying to get by out here, same as anyone. Not interested in getting mixed up in that kind of business. Grix steepled his fingers. Pity. But if you change your mind, the offer stands. I can be a very generous friend to have, Captain. Think it over. Rice stood abruptly. We're done here. Back on the ship, Rice filled in his crew. Tanner scowled. I don't like it, boss. Grix is bad news. Selling weapons to a snake like that ain't right. Jax nodded. Could bring a lot of heat down on us, too. We don't need the attention. Rook cocked his head thoughtfully. Might be worth considering. We could use the credits, and better gear would give us an edge. It's a tough galaxy out there. Before Rice could respond, a pounding on the ship's airlock cut him off. Tanner moved to the monitor. It's Zephyr. Looks like he brought friends this time. Rice checked his gun, his mind racing. They were badly outnumbered and outgunned. His eyes fell on his comm unit, Grix's message still glowing on the screen. With a muttered oath, he typed out a response. Grix, need that favor now. The desperate escape. Seconds ticked by as Zephyr raged outside. Just as Rice was about to order his crew to arm themselves for a desperate last stand, his comm unit chimed. Bay 94. Hurry. Rice sighed in relief. Looks like we're hearing Grix out after all. The crew hurried to Bay 94, where Grix's ship awaited. They boarded quickly, helping the wounded Jax settle in a corner. Grix lounged in the doorway, his predatory grin still in place. You exceeded my expectations, Captain. That artifact will fetch a pretty penny on the black market, Grix said. Rice glared at him. We held up our end of the deal. Now get us off this station. Grix tutted. Not so fast. There's still the matter of payment. That little relic is a good start, but I'll be taking those antique shooters of yours as well. Tanner surged to his feet. Like hell you will. Rice held up a hand, his gaze never leaving Grix. These guns are all that's keeping you honest right now. We ain't handing them over. Grix's eyes narrowed. I don't think you understand the position you're in, Reyes. I own you, and if you don't play nice. He let the threat hang. The metallic click echoed through the hold as Rook chambered a round in his revolver. Way I see it, we got ourselves an old-fashioned standoff. Grix hissed in frustration, his fingers twitching towards his holster. The tense silence stretched, broken only by Jax's labored breathing. Suddenly, the ship shuddered as an explosion rocked the hull. Alarms blared, and the lights flickered. Rice seized the moment, slamming the butt of his revolver into Grix's temple. The Zorgon crumpled, out cold. Rice spun to his crew. Tanner, Rook, grab Jax. We need to move. They hauled their wounded comrade up, slinging his arms over their shoulders. Rice led the way, revolver at the ready, as they raced through the ship's corridors. The airlock gaped open, the docking bay beyond a chaos of blaster fire and smoke. Zephyr and his Arcturians were locked in a vicious firefight with Grix's guards, plasma bolts crisscrossing the space. Rice cursed under his breath. They were caught between two enemies with nowhere to run. He scanned the bay desperately, his eyes falling on a battered freighter in the far corner. It was a long shot, but it was their only chance. There, he pointed. We make for that ship. Rook, lay down covering fire. Tanner, get Jax on board. I'll hold them off. Rook unslung his rifle, the weapon thrumming with power. He sighted down the barrel and squeezed the trigger, sending a hail of plasma into the fray. Zephyr's thugs scattered, buying precious seconds. Tanner half-dragged, half-carried Jax across the bay, the wounded man groaning with each step. Rice brought up the rear, his revolver barking as he picked off Arcturians with precise shots. They'd reached the freighter ramp, Rook racing ahead to the cockpit. The ship shuddered as its engines roared to life. Tanner hauled Jax aboard, Rice diving after them just as a plasma bolt sizzled past his ear. A new ally. Rook coaxed every ounce of speed from the protesting engines as the freighter blasted out of the docking bay. Rice slumped against the wall, heart pounding. But they had made it. They were clear of the station, for now. Jax lay on the deck, his face ashen, his breath coming in shallow gasps. Tanner knelt beside him, hands slick with blood as he tried to staunch the flow from the plasma wound. The stench of burnt flesh hung heavy in the air. Reyes crouched down, gripping his friend's hand. "Hang in there, Jax. We'll get you patched up." Jax shook his head weakly, a ghost of a smile on his lips. "We both know I'm not walking away from this one, Cap. Just make sure they pay for what they did." His eyes fluttered shut, and his chest stilled. Tanner bowed his head, shoulders shaking. Reyes felt a yawning pit open in his gut, loss and guilt threatening to swallow him whole. Rook's voice crackled over the comm. "Cap, we've got incoming. Looks like Zephyr's not giving up that easy." Reyes stood, jaw set, and moved to the cockpit. "What are we looking at?" Rook's single eye glinted as he monitored the sensors. 3 Arcturian fighters on our tail. They're fast and heavily armed. We can't outrun them in this bucket. Reyes scanned the controls, mind racing. "Then we'll have to outfight them. Rook, get to the gun turret. Tanner, take the co-pilot seat. Let's show these bastards what we're made of." The ship shuddered as the first salvo of plasma bolts slammed into their rear shields. Rook's turret thrummed to life, returning fire with deadly precision. Tanner worked the controls, rerouting power to the forward shields and preparing the ship for evasive maneuvers. Reyes gripped the yoke, eyes locked on the swirling stars outside the viewport. "Hold on tight, boys. This is gonna get rough." The freighter lurched and rolled, plasma bolts scorching past as Reyes executed a series of sharp turns and dives. Rook's turret blazed, one of the fighters exploding in a shower of debris. But the remaining 2 were relentless, closing the distance with each passing second. Suddenly, a new signal pinged on their sensors. Reyes frowned. "What the hell?" A sleek, advanced ship appeared, cutting through the void with ease. It fired a volley of precision shots, obliterating one of the Arcturian fighters and sending the other into a desperate retreat. Reyes watched in awe as the unknown ship moved to flank them, its comm channel crackling to life. "Freighter, this is Captain Lena Voss of the Valkyrie. Looks like you could use a hand." Reyes exhaled in relief. "Captain Voss, you have no idea how glad we are to see you. This is Captain Reyes. We owe you one." The Valkyrie slid into formation alongside the freighter. "How about you let us take care of those repairs, Captain? We've got a fully equipped medbay on board as well." Reyes glanced at Jax's lifeless body, a pang of grief slicing through him. "That would be much appreciated, Captain. We've taken heavy losses." Voss's voice softened. "Understood. Dock with us, and we'll get you squared away." With the Valkyrie's guidance, the freighter docked with the larger ship. Reyes and his crew transferred aboard, the medbay staff immediately tending to their wounds. Reyes stood by Jax's side, feeling a mix of relief and sorrow. They had survived, but at a great cost. New alliances. Captain Voss met them in the medbay, her presence commanding and reassuring. She was a tall, lithe woman with sharp features and piercing blue eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. "Captain Reyes, I'm sorry for your loss," Voss said, her voice tinged with genuine sympathy. "We've all lost people in this fight, but together we can make sure their sacrifices weren't in vain." Reyes nodded, appreciating her understanding. "Thank you, Captain Voss. We've been running and fighting for so long. It's hard to see a way forward sometimes." Voss placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You're not alone anymore. We've been tracking Grix and his network for months. We can help you, and in return, we can use your experience and firepower." Tanner, who had been listening from a nearby bed, nodded. "We've got plenty of fight left in us. Just point us in the right direction." Voss smiled. "I think this is the beginning of a very productive alliance. For now, get some rest. We'll plan our next move in the morning." The crew of the freighter settled into the Valkyrie. finding some solace in the advanced facilities and the company of new allies. Rais, however, found it difficult to sleep. He spent the night in the medbay, keeping vigil over Jax's body, his mind racing with thoughts of revenge and justice. The plan. The next morning, Rais and his crew met with Voss and her officers in the Valkyrie's briefing room. A large holographic display showed detailed schematics of Grix's operations and known hideouts. Voss pointed to a heavily fortified base on the far edge of the sector. This is Grix's main hub. He's been using it to funnel weapons and tech to various factions. If we hit him here, we can cripple his operations and send a message to anyone else thinking of stepping into his shoes. Rais studied the schematics. That's a lot of firepower. We'll need a distraction to get close enough to do any real damage. Voss nodded. Exactly. That's where you come in. We'll launch a two-pronged assault. The Valkyrie will engage Grix's forces head-on, drawing their attention. Meanwhile, your team will infiltrate the base and plant charges on their primary power generators. Tanner cracked his knuckles. Sounds like a plan. When do we start? Voss smiled. As soon as you're ready. Time is of the essence. Ray stood, his resolve hardening. We'll be ready. Let's finish this. The final battle. The Valkyrie streaked through space, closing in on Grix's base. The tension in the air was palpable as Rais and his crew prepared for the mission. They donned advanced combat suits provided by Voss's team, each equipped with integrated weapon systems and enhanced mobility features. Rais checked his revolver, the familiar weight of comfort in his hand. Let's make Jax proud, he said, his voice steady. The Valkyrie's engines roared as they engaged Grix's forces, the ship's weapons blazing. Explosions lit up the void as the two sides clashed. Amidst the chaos, Rais and his team launched in a stealth shuttle, slipping through the battle lines undetected. They landed near the base's perimeter, moving swiftly and silently through the shadows. Rais led the way, his keen senses alert for any signs of danger. They reached the power generators, a massive structure humming with energy. Tanner and Rook set the charges, their movements precise and practiced. Just as they finished, alarms blared, and Grix's guards swarmed into the room. Move! Rais shouted, opening fire. The revolver barked, each shot finding its mark. Tanner and Rook covered their retreat, the advanced suits enhancing their speed and agility. They fought their way back to the shuttle, Rais feeling the familiar thrill of battle mixed with a grim determination. As they launched, the charges detonated, a massive explosion ripping through the base. The Valkyrie disengaged, its engines flaring as it sped away from the collapsing structure. Cheers erupted in the comms as they left Grix's base in ruins. Back on the Valkyrie, Voss greeted them with a triumphant smile. Well done, Rais. Grix's operation is crippled, and the sector is a little safer tonight. Rais nodded, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders. We couldn't have done it without you, Captain Voss. Thank you. Voss shook his hand. This is just the beginning, Rais. Together, we'll make sure no one else suffers like we have. Rais looked around at his crew, battered but unbroken, and felt a renewed sense of hope. They had found allies, and with them, a chance to fight for a better future. As they celebrated their victory, Rais knew that the road ahead would be long and hard, but they would face it together, ready to take on whatever challenges lay ahead. Aftermath and recovery. Rais and his crew stood on the bridge of the Valkyrie, watching the debris of Grix's base drift into the void. The sense of accomplishment was palpable, but so was the exhaustion. They had won a significant battle, but the war was far from over. Voss approached Rais, a datapad in hand. We've intercepted some of Grix's communications. There are still factions out there that will try to fill the power vacuum he left behind. We need to be vigilant. Rais nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. What's our next move? Voss glanced at the datapad. For now, we regroup and recover. We've taken heavy losses, and we need to strengthen our alliances. There's a summit of independent factions happening on Andorra Prime. It's a chance to gain new allies and present a united front against any remnants of Grix's network. Tanner, still bearing the physical scars of their recent battles, spoke up. Do you think they'll listen to us? After everything that's happened? Voss gave a determined nod. They will. We have proof of Grix's atrocities, and we've shown that we're capable of fighting back. But it's not going to be easy. Trust needs to be built. Reyes sighed, running a hand through his hair. We'll do what we have to. We've come this far. We can't turn back now. Part 9. The Summit at Andorra Prime. The Valkyrie docked at the orbital station above Andorra Prime, a bustling hub of activity as delegates from various factions arrived for the summit. Reyes and his crew, freshly healed and outfitted in clean uniforms, disembarked with Voss and her officers. The summit was held in a grand hall, its walls lined with banners representing the diverse groups gathered there. Reyes felt a sense of awe and trepidation as they entered, the room filled with the leaders of numerous independent factions. Voss took the stage first, her commanding presence drawing the attention of the entire hall. Thank you all for coming. We've gathered here today because we face a common threat. Grix may be gone, but his network remains, and they will stop at nothing to continue their reign of terror. She gestured to Reyes, who stepped forward, feeling the weight of countless eyes on him. This is Captain Reyes. His crew and mine have fought side by side against Grix's forces. We've seen firsthand the devastation they bring. But we've also seen the power of unity and resilience. Reyes took a deep breath and began to speak. We've all suffered losses. We've all felt the sting of betrayal and the pain of losing those we care about. But together, we have the strength to fight back, to protect our homes, our families, and our future. We ask for your support, your alliance, so we can stand against this threat as one. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, and Reyes could see the skepticism and hope mingling in the eyes of the delegates. One by one, representatives began to speak, some voicing their support, others expressing doubts. A tall, imposing figure from the Garland Confederacy stepped forward. You speak of unity, Captain Reyes. But what guarantees do we have that this alliance won't crumble at the first sign of adversity? Reyes met the Garland's gaze steadily. We have no guarantees, but we have a choice. We can stand alone, vulnerable to the forces that seek to divide and destroy us. Or we can stand together, stronger for our unity. The choice is yours. The hall fell silent, the tension palpable. Finally, the Garland nodded. The Confederacy will stand with you, Captain Reyes. We've seen enough division. It's time for a new era of cooperation. Cheers erupted as other factions followed suit, pledging their support. The summit ended with a renewed sense of purpose and determination. Reyes felt a swell of pride and hope. They had taken a crucial step toward a united front against their common enemy. Part 10. A New Mission. In the days that followed, the newly formed alliance began to take shape. Delegates worked tirelessly to draft agreements and coordinate resources. Reyes and his crew found themselves at the center of the efforts, their reputation as heroes solidified by their actions. Voss approached Reyes in the Valkyrie's briefing room, a new mission outlined on the datapad. We've identified several key locations where Grix's remnants are regrouping. Our task is to hit them hard and fast, cut off their resources, and dismantle their operations. Reyes studied the map, noting the strategic points marked. We'll need to be careful. They'll be expecting retaliation. Voss nodded. Agreed. We'll coordinate with our new allies, launch simultaneous strikes to catch them off guard. Are you ready for this? Reyes looked around at his crew, seeing the determination and readiness in their eyes. We're ready. Let's finish what we started. The Valkyrie and its allied ships moved into position, each team prepared for their part in the coordinated assault. Reyes and his crew boarded their ship, now fully repaired and outfitted with advanced technology provided by their allies. As they approached their target, Reyes addressed his crew. This is it. We've fought hard to get here, and we've lost a lot along the way. But we've also gained new friends and allies. Let's show these bastards that we're not to be underestimated. The ship shuddered as it entered the atmosphere of the enemy stronghold. Explosions lit up the sky as the Allied forces launched their attack. Rise and his team hit the ground running, their weapons blazing as they cut through the enemy defenses. The battle was fierce, but the coordinated effort of the Alliance proved overwhelming. One by one, the strongholds fell, their forces scattered and broken. Rise felt a surge of triumph as they breached the final compound, capturing key leaders and securing critical intel. Epilogue: A New Dawn. With Grix's network dismantled and the remnants of his forces defeated, the Alliance turned its attention to rebuilding. The newfound unity among the factions brought hope and stability to regions long plagued by conflict. Rise stood on the bridge of his ship, watching the stars. He thought of Jax and the others they had lost, their sacrifices not in vain. Tanner joined him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "We did it, Cap. We really did it." Rise nodded, a sense of peace settling over him. "Yeah, we did. And we'll keep fighting, keep protecting what we've built. For them. And for the future." As the Alliance moved forward, stronger and more united than ever, Rise knew that the battles ahead would be different. They would face new challenges, but they would do so together, guided by the spirit of cooperation and the unbreakable bonds forged in the heat of conflict. The galaxy had changed, and with it, so had the future. And for the first time in a long while, Rise felt a glimmer of hope. The fight for a better tomorrow had just begun, and they were ready to face it together.